Welcome to The Loyalist. I am your host, Adam Long, VP of Sales at Yotpo, the retention marketing platform for e-commerce brands. In a world where shoppers are overwhelmed with options and loyalty is harder than ever to earn, we sit down with the people behind the brands that break through the noise. How did they determine the loyalty strategies for their brands, and what were the key factors they considered to create a lasting connection with their customers? In each episode, we will focus on a different area of loyalty, doing a deep dive into the world of customer loyalty, where strategy meets psychology and real-world success stories come to life. We will find out what is the secret sauce that turns a cool product into a world-leading brand with loyal followers. In this premiere episode, I'm joined by two special guests. Firstly, we have Leanne Chan, a senior CRM leader in e-commerce with over a decade of experience building and scaling high-impact loyalty programs at leading retailers like Gap and ThirdLove, blending deep analytics with customer-first thinking. I will also be joined by Nikki Tooman, CEO and co-founder of Sticky Digital, a female-led agency rapidly earning a reputation as the go-to partner for businesses aiming to improve their customer retention funnel. Sticky Digital has helped clients across multiple industries boost retention, drive revenue, and increase customer lifetime value. Together, we dive into the evolution of loyalty programs and unpack the psychology behind what truly drives customer connection and long-term brand loyalty. Well, thank you both so much for joining us. I'm really looking forward to today's episode, in which we're going to be diving deep into the psychology of loyalty programs, exploring how points and credit cards each play unique roles in shaping consumer behavior. And whether it's Sephora's Beauty Insider program to Gap's revamped loyalty program, we'll discuss the emotional engagement behind point systems and the powerful status-driven appeal of store credit cards and the earning and redeeming of points to drive consumer behavior. So we're going to start right there, actually, with point systems. I think if you look at the history of different retention efforts that e-com or the consumer brands have implemented over the course of the last sort of 20, 30 years. The early 2000s was sort of characterized by the launch by big retailers of store credit cards. And then the 2010s, the world shifted with more DTC brands, more smaller brands, and the launch of more and more points-based loyalty systems. And in the Shopify ecosystem today, for example, 35% of Shopify brands with more than $1 million of annual GMV have a points-based loyalty system in place. And so clearly it's become a very big part of the ecosystem. And Leanne, I'd love to start with you, because I know this is something which you have a lot of experience with Gap and then with ThirdLove. I'd love to understand why you think points-based systems have become such a staple of consumer brands. And what do you think it is behind just the actual earning of points that drives the kind of consumer behavior that brands are looking to achieve?
Yeah, I think, as we know, the consumer landscape the D2C consumer e-com retail landscape has become so competitive and overcrowded. And it's really hard for brands like us even brands like the Gap, to really stand out and make noise in the market these days. And so it's almost become table stakes loyalty. I think for brands like us, this is just a thing that you have to have and the thing you have to do because customers have come to expect it. And I think from a psychology standpoint, the customers, it's about like feeling seen a lot of times with loyalty. There's instant gratification and like you feel like you're winning something when you get the rewards and it hits your account and you're able to finally use it. There's something that like feels good about that. And I think that's been kind of like baked into the consumer's mindset that every time you go on a site, every time you walk into a store now, you want to feel good about the purchase you're making, not only from like how it makes you look or feel, but also in terms of your wallet and what it's doing to your wallet. So I do think there is this, for a consumer, we've trained them that loyalty programs are a must. And then they have this like almost like drug in their brain of like, I need this. I need to get some kind of deal for this, or it's not worth it to me.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point there. I mean, like, Nikki, you obviously work with dozens of brands in this space. The point Leanne makes around it almost being expected. So how do the brands you work with, how do they tend to think about the design of the rewarding of points in such a way that might enable them to stand out and not just be one of the pack?
I think it's really interesting because I don't necessarily think that a majority of brands really understand that there are ways that you can stand out. I think a lot of people, to Leanne's point, it's like it's just become what we as consumers expect, right? And so I think where a lot of brands fail is you roll out a program because you think everybody else you need to because everybody else is doing it, but you're not setting yourself apart and you're not doing something that speaks to your brand and is very authentic to your brand. I think where we also see a lot of brands failing is like you have a loyalty program, but like, how do people know that you have a loyalty program? How is it messaged? Like, is it forward facing? Is it something that just like lives behind the scenes and they're enrolled because they've made one purchase? Like, what does that look like? And you can't really validate whether your program is successful if like nobody knows that you have a loyalty program. So I think like that's sort of like when we come into conversations with brands, a lot of the time is it's like, I have loyalty or I know I want to have a loyalty program, but I don't know how to implement it or I don't know how to make it special for me, like for my brand. We also had a customer just recently come back to us that we gave them an entire like launch program and we said like, this is your program. This is how it's going to be built. They did the pilot. It worked really well. And they were like, but we didn't follow your launch plan and nobody knows that it exists and nobody knows to use the points. So like, we need to bring you guys back in to sort of like help us execute this launch plan because we didn't do that because we didn't want to shove it down people's throat too much. But when you almost don't do that, people are expecting it, but don't really go looking for it, if that makes sense. And I think, Leanne, you said something like that previously. Like, we know that we're supposed to have it, but like, that's not what's going to make me buy the first time. It's going to make me come back. But if I don't even know if I have points, like what are we doing?
Yeah, we should be getting credit. Everybody who's a loyalty marketer, every dollar we give away in terms of a discount or reward, we should be getting credit for that dollar in the consumer's mind. And so it's a useless point if they don't know about it and they're not feeling the goodness that we're trying to drive in their like or journey with us.
Yeah, I think that's really. I know you said previously, Leanne, that you surveyed your customers at ThirdLove around how they wanted to be rewarded and what would kind of drive their kind of behavior. And before you launched the program there, and you got a lot of feedback that points-based systems was what they wanted. I think like tied in with that, like again, what Nikki was sharing about communication and the sort of the gamification of loyalty programs and kind of the dopamine hit of earning rewards and earning sort of status is obviously the use of VIP tiers and the goal that sets specifically around earning, not necessarily the redemptions and the discounts and stuff which follow from that, but the earning of rewards such that you achieve a bronze or a silver or whatever status of your program. How did you, when you designed the ThirdLove program, how did you think about that? How did you think about setting the relevant targets and doing so in such a way which would actually make people like gamify the system such that people wanted to do it?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a good question. It's a hard question. You want tiers, you want to be aspirational. You want to make sure your upper tiers, 1 or 2, and we debated, do we have 2 tiers? Do we have 3 tiers? But you want to make sure that your tiers have something actually special that's aspirational for the customer that makes them want to get there. If you kind of just give them, something that's not really something that they value, it's not going to be the driver of increased spend that you're looking for. And so when we thought about our tiers, we went back and forth over 2 or 3 tiers. I'm like, I don't think I have enough in terms of right now, in terms of what the P&L looks like, to be able to give 2 extra tiers because they just don't have that much more to give in terms of points and discounts. We don't have the whole experiential built out yet. I think like the upper tiers, they should be getting VIP service. They should be getting VIP touches, a stylist. They should be getting special in-store events. Like they should be getting a whole suite of things if you're going to go 3 tiers. And so we stuck to 2 because we knew that we had enough for an upper tier, but not necessarily a third. And so for us, it was really like, is it special enough? Do we have enough to give them? And then from like how we cut the spend tiers and like where we decided on the cut would be. So like the threshold you would get for us, it's you have to spend $250 with us in a calendar year for you then to be eligible for upgrade to tier. We took a look and we cut our customers' spend like, so the last 12 months of customers, how many of them spend 50 to 100? How many of them spend 100? And we just like sliced and diced our customer base by spend bands and LTV. And we looked at it in different ways. We looked at length of time and vintage of how long our customers have been with us as well. And we decided the 250 felt like there's like a ratio, right? Is it like, do you give 10% of your customers the VIP status? Do you give 20, 30? And at what point are you diluting it? And so we went closer to, I think, probably industry standard, which is around the 15-ish% of people in a given year that spend at that amount. And so that's how we decided our tier strategy.
Amazing. And like when it comes to like Leanne, sorry, Nikki, what you were saying about the communication piece, you were obviously talking about it in the context of launching the program, but in the context of trying to actually then, in the case Leanne's describing, obviously the goal is to try and get more people than the original 15% to be spending that $250 a year. What are the kinds of ways that you have then seen be successful at actually then trying to use that threshold to gamify it and actually then drive that behavior with the customer bases of different brands?
Yeah, I think when a brand is doing something that's very unique and special to them, and like Leanne's talking about how they have like two very different tiers of like, you know, we have enough to like put these group of people in this higher tier. There's a couple of ways that like we recommend messaging it. I think like you can get very savvy and creative with like, it also depends on your tech stack. I will also say that, but you can get very crafty and creative with sort of like messaging things on pop-ups based on segmentations of like segments of people that are like running through this loyalty program, reminding these people like you're close to sort of like this tier, running emails, running SMS messages, personalizing things on landing pages, I think is huge for people. And there's a lot of technology that you can sort of like pump that into your Shopify pretty native through sort of like your CRM data, where all of this lives, right? Like all of this information lives within your CRM. And so you can do all these like really sophisticated things. And I don't think that there's a right approach, a one set approach for everyone. Again, it does depend on sort of like your technology, but I will say like the more you can put into the communication piece and the more that you can put it forward facing, but in a personalized approach. So you're not just like slapping it everywhere across your website and like across every single email. It's really like the personalization piece that's going to make the difference, and like running to different segments and like using logic blocks, which you can use with almost any CRM now, and really trying to like push forward the fact that like you're so close to the next tier, like in your abandoned cart emails, if they're like one purchase away from like going and being like that VIP tier, run that messaging through your CRM as they abandon the cart. Like use anything that you can to sort of like get them over the mark. But again, you just have to be really careful because you don't want it to come across as like spammy, or even just like the fact that now like your ultimate goal is to like push this loyalty program, right? Like you want it to look authentic and personalized.
I think copy matters too. And I push back on my copy team a lot. Like, make them feel special. Congrats. You're our best. Thank you so much. You know, that kind of language really speaks to the best. And we've talked about this, Nikki. It's like reciprocity. Like, I give you so much. Yep. Tell me how special I am to you. And my copy team like isn't used to it. I'm always like, I want to thank you. Just put a thank you in there. I sound like my husband, you know? And so it's like, and so I do think that copy also matters. It's placement, it's triggers, but also like how you speak to them matters.
How you speak to them.
Make them feel like they're special in the way
yes,
that
they are. Yeah, they are special, and they should feel it. Yeah.
And that actually, so I kind of now want to move on to like, again, something we spoke about like in the build up to this. We were speaking about sort of the different types of rewards. And you mentioned, Leanne, when you were designing those tiers, you, excuse me, didn't feel like there were necessarily enough incremental benefits that you could give to create that additional tier. And it kind of touches on the point of the different types of value you can give. Obviously, points, typically speaking, are used to give money off. So it's a discount level type value. But they're also experiential things. Now, it might be things that are sort of monetary, like free shipping, but it also might be, I think you mentioned, in-store events or access to early access to a sale or a new product drop or things like that. And I think like what we've, in terms of what the industry trends is that 60% of marketers already spend a significant proportion of their budget on experiential marketing and experiential campaigns, and 79% are planning on spending more. And that's very tied in with loyalty programs and loyalty strategies as well. So how do you think, like, again, coming back to this concept of psychology, what do you think are the types of things that matter to a consumer, and the types of things that are actually they're going to see as valuable and going to make them want to spend more, want to be in that VIP tier, make them feel special?
A lot of it's perceived value. A lot of it is like, does this feel rich to your customer? And like my customer might be very different than a supplement brand. There's just it depends on your customer and what you know about their like lifestyle, psychology, and what they're looking for. So yeah, I think perceived value, it doesn't have to be super rich, but that it feels special and that to them is important, I think makes a big difference for that upper tier and the experiential piece of it. So yeah, I think, when you are thinking about how to design experiential benefits, I think about your customer, listen to your customer. If you can get outside information on what your customer does, are they gym rats? But do they go to Equinox? Do they, are they wellness, wellness nuts? And like, do they want? I'm just on a cleanse right now. Like, I would love a cleanse partnership, or like a discount off and something. I know Lulu's doing that really well in terms of Lululemon knows their customer. They have taken around their lifestyle choices and they've built these partnerships with these brands like the Aura Ring, et cetera, to give them discounts and give them this like ecosystem of partners to help elevate their own brand and their own loyalty program. And I think they know their customer very well. And so they chose the right partners and experiences to match that. I'd say that's number one.
Yeah.
I definitely like want to double tap everything that Leanne just said. I think like it's so important because I think it is like a perceived value thing. And I think when brands, I almost like say, I always joke around and I'm like, I think you're thinking about it too hard. Like what you're doing as a brand already, like you're probably already doing something that you can gate to sort of like this VIP tier. If you're like an athleisure brand and like you're putting out content based on sort of like workouts or I don't know, like at home things that you can do, like can you gate some of that for your VIP tier? If you're an influencer backed brand, can you give access to this influencer and do like a Zoom call? Like we did that with one of our brands and like the influencer jumped on a Zoom call and that was part of like the upper tier and like they loved it and they were doing it for months because like it was just the perceived value and like were they really getting anything out of that call? No, but like are they saying that they're getting on this call with X influencer? Yeah, and I think like it is this really big perceived value that your brand is probably already doing something very unique to you. You just need to have enough self-awareness to like know what that is and like gate it basically.
Yeah.
And I think a big challenge, and I think a big challenge with experientials is it's expensive.
Yeah.
It depends on how far you want to go, but it could cost a lot and it's hard to get the incremental return on an experiential benefit versus points. I can read redemption and incrementality all day, but experiential, you really have to get your leadership to like believe. And a lot of that is like our customers deserve, our best customers deserve the best. And if you inherently believe that, you won't look for the ROI all the time on a lot of these things.
Yeah, no, this comes back exactly to what you were saying a second ago around the making the customers feel valued and feel special. And again, we spoke about this previously with regard to airline programs, right? The thing that I value most about being a loyalty a status of an airline is the access to a lounge, for example, because it's that exclusivity, it's that peace and quiet in an airport. And yes, but that costs airlines a lot of money to put lounges in place and free food and whatever else. But that's what gets me going back again and again and again and using that airline because of that, the perceived value it has for me, which is probably much higher than the actual cost of me going and using that lounge to the airline. So like, it's really interesting some of the things you mentioned there, like, for example, access to the influencer. There is obviously a limit. The influencer can't be on the phone with people all day, every day. So like that is as a super exclusive benefit. So that I think we're going almost beyond VIP tiers and we're talking about like the top 0.001% of the customers of the brand. That's I think really interesting to me because that's then it's as I said, beyond VIP tiers, beyond loyalty. How do you then start to design those super valuable experiences? What are the things that are going to differentiate the customer type that you're going to give that to?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we haven't explored in any of my, actually I'll give you an example. It's not true. We'll take the top 100. We've taken the top 100 at the big flagship retail I used to work at with a very long, mature loyalty program. We used to take the best 100 and we would send them cashmere blankets over the holiday. And it would have a nice like handwritten note on it. It would be in a bow. It would be sent directly to their homes with, no other warning. And it was just a surprise and delight. And so I think for your really upper crust there, and again, it's not that expensive to do, but if I got a cashmere blanket with a handwritten note, I would feel so so like special, and they see me and they know me. And I just feel like there are certain little things that you can do. We just did actually recently, we did handwritten notes. We sent it to our top 100 after Black Friday, Cyber Monday. It's just like, thank you, had no offer in it. And we saw 30% conversion rate on just that note. Like in the month after, I just checked to see who made a purchase, and 30% of them made a purchase. So it's for this upper crust, we think it has to be something like rocket ship. It really doesn't. So we've done blankets, we've done like bags, we've done, and you can always survey your customers, your best customers. And we've done that. We're like, hey, would you rather have a notebook, a beanie, or this like shower radio? And they're like, we don't want a shower radio. I'm like, heard, we're not going to send you a shower radio. So, I think you can also ask your customers, like, what is it that you want? And these little gifts, I think, have been the way that previous loyalty programs I've worked with have done it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. And I also think that like you can use your loyalty program in a way that like benefits your brand too, in the respect that like to the surveying and things like that, like you'd be surprised at how much information these people will give you because they care about your brand. And I think even you just showing that you care equally as much about them, and like somebody from the brand getting on a call with them and asking specific questions, like, is that a perk or a benefit? No, but is that person going to talk about it to their friends and their family and say about how this brand called them to ask them these questions because you're a valued customer? Are they getting anything from it? Not as much as you are, but they're going to talk about it to everybody. So I think like it's just making somebody feel special, feel seen, feel heard. And like, I'm spending all this money with your brand. Like, I would like to know that like you notice how much money I'm spending with your brand.
It's I'm reminded of an example, an extreme example of this, which is one of our customers is BarkBox, and it's a sort of a pet business. And they did a program. I forget the details of exactly what they were rewarding, but they did a program where they sent out, I think it was to 100 or 200 customers, essentially giant dog toys, like human-sized toys that were in the shape of a dog. And I think they were like, fancy colors and stuff like that. And they went viral. People who got these were taking pictures, putting them on TikTok. They said they were inundated with customer requests saying, we want one of these things, we'll buy one. And they didn't have enough made. But the point being that it was designed to reward their loyal customers. And it ended up going viral and giving so much equity to the brand. And I think that comes back to what both of you are saying around knowing your customers. What are the customers? What do they care about? What is going to excite them? What's going to make them want to tell their friends, post online, whatever it might be.
Yep.
And I think that comes back to the point we've been speaking about, which is different types of brands, different types of incentives, depending on the nature of the brand and the nature of the customer base. And I think a great example, and tying this back to sort of credit cards being a part of loyalty programs, Leanne, you were obviously previously at Gap, and Gap launched a sort of revamped their loyalty program. Sort of integrated their store credit card within that program. And I believe the benefit they give for the credit card is 5x points. So you get 5x points on the loyalty program when you buy Gap clothes with the Gap credit card. If you compare that, for example, to Target, they don't give points. They just give a straight 5% cashback offer if you're using your Target credit card in a Target store. So how do you both of you think about that? Those are obviously, in a sense, they're both giving the same value away, but in a very different way. And so why do you think they would have taken those two approaches? And what would other brands, if they're approaching this dilemma of what types of rewards to give, what should they be considering when they're thinking about those different types of rewards?
I do think there's a real immediate gratification to the discount on the spot. And if I need to buy shampoo and I'm like, well, I could go to Target or I could go to X big box retailer, let's say Walgreens, because who knows what their loyalty program is, even though I punch in my phone number every time. Never have used anything. No idea. What is that for? So a problem with their loyalty program. But if I'm going to go get shampoo, I'm going to go to Target because I know I have my red card. It's 5% off that moment. And by the way, 5% off on shampoo is not that much. It's 10 cents, right? And so, but still, we're trained to be like, well, it's still 5%. That's still something. And so I think there is immediate gratification to that, and I think that's very tempting to like brands like us, to a brand like a Gap, where it's just like, let's just give it to them when they want it, and so you move that market share when they're trying to make the decision. But I do think for a Gap like a brand like the Gap, a brand like ThirdLove, where potentially it's just not as high frequency. We don't have customers. I think the Gap does more than ThirdLove, but at ThirdLove, you're thinking about maybe getting new bra, new underwear, maybe twice a year. We're not top of mind in terms of your decision making on a day-to-day basis. And so I do think the difference between immediate gratification and driving that next visit with points versus the percent discount on that purchase is, I think that's the big differentiator for us. It's like, if you're more high frequency, yeah, the wallet share decision happens more often and it will happen more around that instant discount, versus if it's a brand where you're not going there that often and some more, like an intentional buy. I do think using those points and rewards to drive that next purchase, the frequency is what drives the incremental for brands like us. Like, it's that incremental frequency that we're getting, the return purchase, that really drives the value for our loyalty programs.
I will agree with that. And I think, like, when you think about it too, like Costco kind of does the same type of deal where at the end of every year you get like a cash back for like the money that you've spent. Like, they don't necessarily, their whole perceived value is like you're saving money, right, by shopping there. But really at the end of the year, when you get your sort of like, you spent $30,000 with us, here's your like $200 check, like, for you as a customer, like, you're excited because like you're gonna go and you're gonna shop at Costco anyways. I'm gonna buy my kids that big box of goldfish that's gonna sit in my garage for like the next 3 months because like I'm saving money virtually, right? And I'm gonna get money back on it. But it works because they know that like you are going to come back so frequently that like they don't really need to give you that much money back, but you're gonna go and you're gonna spend that savings again on them. And you don't necessarily need anything in the moment. But I think like for brands that are like have less of a frequency and like not really like a needed item, right? Like, it's not toothpaste, it's not floss. For some of these other brands, I think like ThirdLove, it is very impactful to sort of like give a discount when somebody is going to, or give them the option to like use their points when they're going to make a purchase, because they're coming back so irregularly as opposed to a Target and a Costco.
Yeah. And a lot of times, and I don't want to say this is like mom psychology, but we saw this at the Gap. You buy stuff for your kids at the Gap and Old Navy, you store up your points, you get your big reward, and then you go to Athleta and you buy your own, like, it's me time. I earned this. And so now I'm going to go buy myself some leggings. And so I think there is also that part of the psychology of, this is like free dollars I earned. It's a gift to myself. And so I'm going to use it on myself now. And so I think, I don't think you get that on the discount immediate purchase psychology either.
Probably more girl math on most of these.
Oh, girl math. And I'm not saying it's right, but we definitely see it.
But it works.
It works. We heard it here first. Nikki spends $30,000 a year at Costco.
So, that's a lot of goldfish.
I can just see my husband right now going back through the credit card statement to be like, I don't know, I'm spending $30,000 a year.
But jokes aside, you said something interesting in that answer when you revealed that truth about yourself, Nikki. You said, well, I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna buy that goldfish box anyway. And I think that actually ties in with a big question about loyalty and the psychology of loyalty, which is, does it actually drive incremental purchases, or does it incentivize those purchases, or is it just giving away discounts for people who are going to make those purchases anyway? And we've spoken previously about brands that I think you said your daughters shop at frequently, that don't have loyalty programs and feeling shortchanged, but you still go back and you still buy from those brands anyway because you like their products. So, and this I think ties in actually with a bigger question that the brands marketers are challenged with from finance all the time is like, why are we doing this? Is it actually driving a benefit for our business? So I'd love both of your takes. Leanne, I know you tested the ThirdLove program before you rolled it out, and you actually saw results there. So I'd love to dive into that. And Nikki, in working, like, I love actually your personal experience just as a consumer. Like, why do you keep going back to those brands even though you feel shortchanged? And what would be the point at which you would actually stop going back, or maybe you'd go back more frequently because they were offering you rewards?
Mm-hmm. I'll start on the data side of things. So it wasn't at ThirdLove, but at my previous big retailer, we did do a holdout because we had stores. And so you could actually hold out geo stores and keep it offline and just hold out some stores and find some like stores and actually do a real true like A/B against control. And when we've seen that, and we have always, like, every good CFO should be asking you, where is the incrementality? What is the business case for this? And so what we did was we held out stores, had like stores, and we watched them over time. And we really saw the incremental there. And it was, up to the 30% lift in terms of, and it comes from frequency. It's not going to be AOV. It's not going to be UPT. You're not driving more units in a basket. You're not driving, the basket to change. Really, it's really what you're banking on is for them to come in more often to be able to redeem those points. And so we saw that by 30% and when we held out our test. And so I do think that in that way, we really validated in a very clean test environment that there is incrementality. Again, it depends on how rich your programs are, right? Because it does hit your bottom line. So even if your frequency is going up, like if you're like giving away the farm, your margin is going to be hit more substantially. But if you can balance it in the right way, you should be able to see that frequency incrementality.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think there are very good ways to be able to test this. I think like brands should actually know their threshold and like know what they're willing to sort of like give away, because virtually like that's what a loyalty program is, right? Like, are you willing to give away products? Are you willing to give away a discount dollar value? Like, what are you and your finance team like sort of like willing to give away? On sort of like the consumer side of things, like I'm probably the worst person to ask this to, because like I am a spontaneous shopper through and through, and like every Instagram ad like gets me good. I am Amazon's probably like number one buyer because it's convenient and boxes show up at my house every day. Literally had my neighbor stop by the other day and be like, I haven't seen packages showing up, so I didn't think you were home. And I'm like, that says a lot about me as a person, because I'm shopping so much. But I think like not having a loyalty program doesn't necessarily prevent me from shopping there, because a lot of times it's not the reason why I shop at a brand. I shop at a brand because I like it and I like the product and the quality of the product. But I will say to that though, that when I do shop at the brands that I love that have a loyalty program, it's not the thing that brings me back, but you better believe I'm using my points to save money on my purchase. So it's like, it is sort of like a combination. And I think like when people love a brand, it is going to make them actually like check out. It is going to make them like go the next step rather than just leaving something in cart because they're not sure if they need it. Again, another like girl math thing. Like I now have free money that I can use on this product or this checkout. And so I can get a discount for it. And those are the things that like do make me purchase. And sometimes I might pause a little bit more on the consumer side when I'm making a spontaneous purchase. And I'm like, but do I need this right now? If I had points that would make it at a discount or points that would like make it cheaper, I would immediately buy it. So I think like there is a piece to that too.
I argue you are being suckered by a loyalty program. You don't know it. Amazon is the ultimate loyalty program.
Yeah, I know they are.
Ultimate loyalty program, and it's not always. It's not the points necessarily. It's the free shipping. It's the convenience. It's the UI of it. But I think that goes to testament if you're like, I'm not driven by a loyalty program. Actually, that's the ultimate one.
Convenience.
So my brainwashed us to like, we don't even think it's a loyalty program, but it 100% is.
Yeah. And I think exactly to that point, what you were saying there, Nikki, about I like the brand, I like the product, so I'm going to shop from them anyway. But actually, if it's driving you to make a decision now rather than maybe waiting a month, rather than maybe, you've got points expiring in 2 weeks, and so you're going to spend them now rather than waiting. And if you waited, maybe you wouldn't have actually purchased those products.
Right.
and so it ends up over the course of a year, 2 years, 3 years, driving actual incremental behavior, exactly as you're saying, Leanne.
Yep.
But I think the other interesting thing from a brand perspective is that what we see is, generally speaking, only about, on average, 20 to 30% of points that are awarded actually get redeemed. Now, the programs that do a really, really good job of driving engagement and communicating and so on, it's more like 40 to 50%, but on average, it's about 20 to 30%. And I think a lot of brands don't think of it that way. I think a lot of brands think, well, if we're giving, for example, $100 spent is 10 points, and that's worth whatever it is, 10% off, let's just say, for example. They think, oh, I'm giving 10% off. But actually, if obviously only 20 to 30% of the points are going to be redeemed, you're only giving 2 to 3% off, and it's a completely different dynamic. So, do you think? My last question on this point before we move on is, you talked about, Leanne, finding that balance, not giving all the margin away, but you obviously have to make it generous enough to actually make people want to use the points. How do you find that balance? Is there a science to it?
I don't think there's a science to it. I do think that, look at the average margin and average discount rate that you are giving away today. How much can you flex on it? So do the math. If, let's say 50% of your customers join the loyalty program, if 20% of them were to redeem an extra 5 or 10% of discount on top of the already average discount rate you've got over the entire whole, which is what you're saying, Adam, it's going to even out. It's going to be diluted down to not a full point, but a half a point, a quarter of a point, right? And so if you do the math of what your expectations are in terms of forecasting, how many people are going to join, how many are going to redeem, and what incremental discount you might be giving them based on a 5x, a 10x, et cetera, you can go see what your margin impact is going to be overall over your entire P&L. And you can then take into a low, medium, high scenario into your CFO to be what appetite do we have for this? And then, you got to bake in marketing costs. There is a lot of marketing costs that come in with standing up a loyalty program. You've got your tech costs, you've got experiential costs and gift with purchase costs, right? So baking all of that in, it all adds up together into what margin amount you're able to convince your CFO you can get, because part of that is incrementality. And so in your business case, you got to say yes, I'm giving away an extra 5% on 50 times 20% of people, but I'm also, let's forecast out, we're going to get 1.5x on these people. And so what does that mean for your top line to your bottom? And so that's how I've done it always in my entire loyalty career, is you build out that 3-year forecast. You got a ramp up period. You've got to buy a little bit of your sales, but then eventually your incremental frequency should offset every dollar that you're giving away from a marketing and from a points discount as well. Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly how we do it too at Sticky. You have to do the forecasting of it. If you're not doing the forecasting of it, you're going to probably put yourself in a really bad position in a year where your CFO is coming to you and is we can't do loyalty anymore. Shut it down. It's got to stop. I think when you do the forecasting and you have to take into account, like Leanne said, the GWPs also count. There's things that you have to take into account. And doing that forecasting, you should have a really great lens and be able to see your highest value customers, what are they actually getting from you if they keep purchasing and if they keep doing these things.
Yeah.
And that forecast will tell a lot, and it'll show the sustainability of your program.
Yeah. And I'm going to give you a shout out. I was not paid for this. I do think your guys' platform does a very good job of showing us the health of a redeemer versus a non-redeemer. And so you can see that over time, our redeemers are spending more than a non-redeemer. Is this all incremental? Probably not. Some of these people were going to do that anyway, but it still shows the health overall of the program. And it shows you that, for me, I'm always looking at AOV too. Am I getting on my redemption is just tanking AOV? Are they buying one item and then just using their reward on it? They're not. And so as long as AOV and redemption overall redeemer value is healthy, which your guys' dashboard is really good about showing, I think, for me as a loyalty marketer, it gives me comfort, and I still know, even if I can't see everything on a P&L and long-term vision, I can still see on the day-to-day that it's doing well.
Thank you for the plug. So I think thinking now kind of into trends in the market and where the market's going, I think a lot of the things we've touched on here today have focused on the fact that because you are earning the points by spending, you feel like you should therefore redeem them. Like you've earned them, you should use them. And so you obviously use that example with buying the kids' clothes at Gap and Old Navy and then redeeming them at Athleta. We're seeing, I think, sort of a relatively new trend in the market, which is paid memberships. And in those cases, you're not earning the rewards. You're obviously literally buying the rewards by signing up and paying for the membership to the brand's membership program. How do you, like, Nikki, I'll maybe start with you on this one. Like, are you seeing, the customers you work with, are you having conversations about this? And how do you think, what do you think is the difference in the psychology there between buying versus earning those rewards?
Yeah, I think an easy way to just like look at it from a brand perspective, if you are ever running like limited quantities of lines of certain products, if you're ever doing something that like is going to sell out and you're not going to be able to replenish it, like things like that, that's where membership like really comes into play, and I think can be very good for a brand, because like you want this like top tier customer that's going to like pay into your membership program, or maybe not even pay, but like be a part of your membership program to get first access to it, because they are genuinely probably going to be your best customers. They're going to be the ones that are going to want this like limited quantity run. We are seeing and hearing more conversation around it. I think a lot of brands don't really know how to apply it to them. We're talking to a brand right now who is looking at sort of like different options for what their use case could be. And I think like there is a very great way that you can do both. You can do a membership, you can do tiered. Obviously, you don't want to make things too complicated, but there is a world where both of those things do live together. Years and years and years ago in my previous life, when I was at an agency, on Yotpo, we built, this was literally 9 years ago, we built a paid membership program on the Yotpo loyalty platform for a baby brand that they constantly, every time they would launch a new product, it would sell out. And so it was a very custom development piece, but we did it and it lasted for years where they would do it, because the parents, like they knew what they wanted. The parents wanted to buy these like shoes for the kids. And every time that if you weren't a part of the membership program, you wouldn't be able to get them. So like doing the paid membership, it worked because you gave them access and they could get it first, and there weren't people being angry about it. I think there is a world where they can both sort of like live. I think there's a world where maybe like one fits better for another. And I don't necessarily, again, unless you know your product very, very well and like your brand very well, I don't think that you would be able to make that decision and say like, we should do this over this, because I don't necessarily think there's like this is the line and like you should sit here or you should sit here.
Yeah, and brands have tried it. Big brands, Sephora tried it. They pulled back on it. I do think it's a nut that hasn't necessarily been cracked by a lot of retailers. I look at it as a good way to manage promos and discounts, right? Like you can get product to those who are paying for it, and you're going to sell out. So that's a nice win there. For bigger brands, if you think you need to go the promo route and you haven't yet, I feel like that's a nice way to gate promo to your best customers. It's hard to gate promo, and once you open that floodgate, you're like, it's hard to pull back on it. And so if you like buy promos, basically, right, like people pay membership fees, you're kind of like offsetting that discount that you're giving away with that upfront fee. It's like hard dollars against these discount dollars. You can potentially gate promos in a way that makes it meaningful to your best customers and also manage your margin as you try your feet in the promo game. It shouldn't be the number one reason why you're doing it, I don't think, but I do think that is a thing I've thought about for a paid membership model.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, we're coming to the end, so I have one final question that I'd love your take on. Where do you think this all goes? Like, where, as I said, we've gone through that journey of the growth of points-based loyalty programs. We're seeing things like paid memberships. We haven't mentioned it at all, which I'm happy for, but I'm going to mention it now. AI. I think we recently at Yotpo surveyed our loyalty customers and asked them where they think that the future of the loyalty market is going. There was a lot of talk around sort of personalization using AI, so you have really one-to-one personalized rewards rather than general rewards for tiers of customers. Where do you two see it? What research are you doing? How are you trying to think about implementing new technology, new ideas, new programs? What do you think the future of loyalty is for D2C brands?
I mean, I think, one of the things that I've been so AI is definitely on the tip of everyone's tongue. I go to these conferences and I'm just so tired of it, but I get that it's here. Yeah, I think we are using AI just at least outside of loyalty, and I think loyalty be the next step is, I think personalized offers is a big one. How you see the site when you come onto the site. And I think loyalty is a layer on that. And again, it goes back to like, when you come on site, I know you're a loyal member. AI is going to show you specifically what you should be seeing as a loyalty member. Today is a free GWP for you, just for you. Thank you for being here. Confetti, like whatever it is, that is step one for us for a personalized AI experience for our loyalty customers. I think, the other thing I'm always thinking about is community. And, especially when I'm selling to women who are, we have specific women that come to our site for our bras, and when you're bra shopping, you come with problems. Nobody loves their bra unless you have a ThirdLove bra. But you come with problems that you've got that you're trying to solve. And like that community of like, oh, you have this problem too. Let me tell you. It's almost like the Reddit, but for loyalty and community and brand. And so I'm always thinking about that. And I think AI can help with that. But I've not seen anybody else who do that well, is to bring in community and that culture into the loyalty program. And so I would love to unlock that a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is amazing. And I think, there are some brands that are doing community stuff too. And I think AI is going to get there to where you can make it a lot easier. Because I think the best testimonial from anybody is going to be like what your fellow fans are saying, right? Like what everybody else is saying about this product specifically. I think like what we're looking at is what Leanne touched on. Like we're looking at sort of like that retention funnel holistically. Like we're looking at like how AI can sort of like help spread the messaging of like who this customer is from every single touch point of like where they're going. So whether that's sort of like in SMS marketing to sort of like help them make the purchase. Conversational is already there. We're already doing conversational SMS, but is there another step with AI where we can sort of like help solve that problem based on who this loyal customer is? I think there's different ways that it's going to start showing its head a little bit more. And really, I think like loyalty in general is not going to go away. I think if anything, it's going to become a bigger forefront of what brands are and what's setting you apart in the industry, because not every bra is built the same, right? Like Leanne said, like nobody loves it, but like there are certain brands like ThirdLove that are going to offer you something from a loyal perspective that another bra company is not. And I think like that's going to start sort of like driving a wedge between brands.
Here's hoping.
Here's hoping, indeed. Well, look, I think we're going to wrap there. But Leanne, Nikki, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you so much for joining us on the Loyalists podcast. I have, for one, loved the conversation and loved learning about how you have both thought about the psychology of loyalty and the psychology of rewards and redemptions, and how you've built them in your respective careers. And I hope that I'm sure that our audience will equally appreciate the insights that you've shared. So thank you so much. And I look forward to chatting to you, maybe not over a podcast, but over a beer or over a nice meal at some point in the near future.
I think we'll hold you to that.
Yeah, I was like, count me in.
Please do. Well, thank you so much. I wish you all the best, and thank you all for listening. This has been the first episode of the Loyalist podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Enjoying the Loyalist? Follow us wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. And for even more expert insights, strategies, and the latest loyalty trends, subscribe to our newsletter linked in the show notes and have them delivered straight to your inbox. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.